Hey folks, I'm Jeffrey Rickman and this is PlainSpoken. I started this channel over a year ago because there was a lot of weird stuff happening in the United Methodist Church, and I've reported on different things going along. I've since left the United Methodist Church. I'm now Global Methodist Clergy, but I haven't given up on the United Methodist Church. I just knew I needed to get clear so that I could do the work that needs to get done. I've a series called Considering Charlotte, in which I'm consulting many other United Methodists to figure out what's going on with this General Conference next month. And one of the topics that we have come up against time and time again is what seems to be an overt pressure campaign or neglect campaign to remove African voices from the upcoming General Conference. It would seem, and I'm not the only one who says this, rather, if you would look just on my channel from a couple days ago, I posted a video with Forbes Matanga, who is, of course, Native African United Methodist clergy, who has alleged that this whole General Conference is going to be pretty much illegitimate if the African delegation is not allowed to attend. Meanwhile, there have been many efforts to manufacture a notion of consent among the African continent. The United Methodist Africa Forum got together a group of delegates that they will not put in any kind of formal list that ostensibly said that they're in favor of the regionalization plan, which the denomination is pushing. Seems very unlikely to be the case, especially since so many delegates have gone on record as against regionalization, against what the institution is wanting. Just a couple weeks ago, I put out a piece that you might want to watch called Mainstream UMC Raises the Alarm That the United Methodist General Conference May Be Imploding. This, of course, was in reference to something that Mark Holland emailed out to his list for Mainstream UMC, saying that even American delegates hadn't been included well, but he said entire African delegations had not gotten invited yet. That's something that I raised the alarm about last year. These things should have gone out last year. And Gary Graves, the conference, he's the primary person, but the person I'm going to report on today is Sara Hotchkiss, who is the business manager of the General Conference. And so what I'm going to show you now is a letter that was sent me that was actually sent to her, you'll see, on March 4th. And I'm recording this on March 13th, 9 days later. And this is a letter that she has not responded to. And you're going to see how, I'll use the word abominable, that's a fun word, that this behavior is. What I still haven't decided what the title of this segment's going to be. I want it to have the phrase refusing to do their jobs. But then there's also the phrase of excluding African voices. I mean, these are things that immediately float to the surface. And you'll see why. If you haven't even watched any of my stuff, go ahead and stick with me with this. Before I even get into this, I just want to say how disappointed I am that other United Methodist media is not reporting on this, that Mark Holland, he had the clarity to do so, and that was a good thing. But I haven't seen anything from UM News dealing with this. I haven't seen anything from UM Insight dealing with this. This is really quite scandalous what's happening. And if it doesn't immediately get fixed, then the legitimacy of this multi-million-dollar affair, I think it's $11 million it costs to put on next month's operation. After delaying for 4 years, it's all going to be a waste because it's going to be illegitimate. And then at that point, everyone's going to have to decide if they're even going to acknowledge the decisions reached whenever it was so overtly done that African voices were excluded here. I don't know how they're going to even make things right. According to Forbes Matanga, a quarter of the entire African delegation is going to be excluded. And when you're looking at those kinds of numbers, how on earth do you imagine that anyone is going to take this seriously other than the people who just get their way? You know, it's well, let's read over the letter and then we'll digest it a little bit together. So this was written on March 4th. It was to Sara Hotchkiss, and it was from it was also to the African College of Bishops, the Council of Bishops, and Mr. Gary Graves, Raquel. So all of them have seen this. It's from Dr. Jerry Kula, whom I've done an interview with. Fantastic gentleman. He's the head of the Liberia delegation, and he's writing on behalf of many other delegates. And in case I haven't said it yet, well, no, I did say it. They have not responded to this. So let's look at the what he wrote. All right, dear Miss Hotchkiss, we have the honor to present our compliments and to thank you, Reverend Gary Graves, General Secretary of the General Conference, the Commission on General Conference, and all who ably made presentations at the just ended orientation. On behalf of the African delegates to the General Conference, we would like to make the following requests of you aimed at facilitating our full and active participation in the 2020 General Conference. Remember, it's 2024, but they're going to be meeting in what was the postponed 2020 General Conference. The letter says, first off, request for letters of invitation for delegates and alternate delegates. Please send letters of invitation to African delegates and alternates who are still waiting on you for their letters. This is very urgent. If African delegates must be fully represented at the General Conference, we request of you to kindly send letters of invitation to alternate delegates. You have not done so yet, and time is running out. In addition, please work with your embassies around Africa to solicit their support in granting American visitors visas to African delegates and their alternates elected by their annual conferences to participate in the 2020 General Conference taking place in Charlotte, North Carolina from April 23rd to May 3rd. Just in case you forgot, there's this General Conference coming up. You haven't sent us invitations. If you're not familiar with the international, especially in Africa, the visa process goes so slow. And whenever you've got this many delegates having to write in saying, we still haven't gotten our letters, they've had years to prepare for this. So what are the odds that, and it's not just Ms. Hotchkiss, there are several other staff people responsible for this. You tell me what you think the odds are that they've just forgotten to do this, or they're just not capable of doing it, even though they've done it for quadrennia before. What are the odds that they've just forgotten, that they're just too busy, as though this is any busier than previous quadrennia, versus they're intentionally just not sending it? The intent, it seems so much more likely to be intentional, right? The letter says, we are both shocked and dismayed by the massive denial of U.S. visas to African delegates by some American embassies, including in Liberia. This has not happened during past general conferences. For example, the American embassy near Monrovia has denied more than 5 official delegates of the Liberia Annual Conference to the 2020 General Conference. Many of them report that the consular did not provide them with the opportunity to explain fully the purpose of their visit. Upon hearing that they would be attending the United Methodist Church's General Conference, the consular asked no further questions, but simply denied them. The embassy has also denied some alternate delegates who have attempted sitting interview to attend the General Conference. Some of these delegates have made previous visits to the United States. Some have studied there and returned to serve the church. We do not understand what is going on. If this situation continues, many African delegates may not make it to the 2020 General Conference, and this may hinder inclusivity in the deliberations at General Conference. We request your timely intervention. I knew whenever I started reporting that they hadn't been invited, that there was still time. And what I hoped was that by shining a spotlight on these people, that they would go, no, this is going to look too bad. The optics are too bad. We need to send out the invitations. I can't believe that we've reached this point and so many invitations have not been sent out. I can't believe we've reached this point and the visa consulates are not cooperating. I don't know if the here's one question I have, and I have no way of answering it. Is the United Methodist Church able to communicate with these United States agencies and say, we've sent them an invitation letter, but we really don't want them to come? I don't know if they can do that. That's just me wondering, because these are people who have already gone through the process before. When they just say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're coming for, and it's immediately turned down, why? COVID is not a thing anymore. Why would this be a thing? It's very strange. There needs to be intervention. Going back to the letter, request for worship space on Sunday, 28th, April 2024. We would like to request of you a space within the convention hall of the General Conference to conduct a worship service for as many delegates that would like to attend, including African delegates. Given that Sunday, April 28th, is free on the General Conference calendar for worship, we would like to experience worship and fellowship with our fellow delegates from around the globe. Thank you in advance. Next paragraph. Requests for African delegates to purchase their own tickets to General Conference. This one's weird. Bear with me. We would like to kindly request that the 13 Episcopal areas within Africa receive the General Conference funds for tickets so that we purchase our own tickets to the 2020 General Conference as before. We find that the Commission on General Conferences plan to purchase delegates' tickets, restrict when they arrive into the United States for the General Conference, and when they return to their home countries is very burdensome for many of them, if not all. This is in light of the fact that it takes a minimum of about 26 hours for an African delegate to travel from Africa to the United States. Besides, there are about 6 to 9 hours difference in the time change between most African countries and the U.S. It would therefore be very painful and exhausting for African delegates to compel them to arrive on April 18th and participate in orientation from the 19th through the 21st before commencing the activities of the General Conference on the 23rd. If you insist on purchasing tickets for African delegates and compelling them to arrive on April 18th, their participation in the orientation activities and in the General Conference proceedings will be very unproductive. Therefore, we kindly request that you release funds for the purchase of the tickets for African delegates to their episcopal areas. To reduce travel jet lag, we will endeavor to arrive a few days before the commencement of the General Conference orientation at our own expense. In addition, your plan for us to conclude the business of General Conference on May 3rd and return to Africa on May 4th would be harmful to our ministry in Africa. By purchasing our own tickets, we will have the opportunity to extend the time of our visit to the United States for about a week or two to visit some of our ministry partners and have some strategic engagements before returning to Africa. We therefore request for your kind reconsideration of your plans to purchase our tickets. So part of what's not being said here is United Methodist leadership and left-leaning caucus groups have been very upset with how Africans have spent their time when coming to the U.S. in previous quadrennia. Why? Because they will eagerly have fellowship with conservatives, because they happen to overlap in their theology and worldview and loyalties. So Africans typically, up until now, this is a change, have been given the funds to purchase their own tickets. They would come a bit early, they would leave a bit late, they would see ministry partners, they would collaborate with other General Conference delegates. They're trying to mitigate that now. They're trying to get them there when they're super tired. The only thing they can attend is conference orientation and then plenary session, and then they're back on a plane immediately. There is no leeway here. They're controlling the movements of Africans. That's what's happening here. All right, it goes on from there, so let's keep reading. The next one is kindly provide our daily food stipend rather than cook for the African delegates. We kindly request that as before, this is how it's been, you provide to African delegates our daily food stipends instead of taking the burden of cooking for us. Many delegates have raised many dietary and health issues associated with your plans to cook for African delegates. Some are on medications and maintain highly restricted diets and would prefer receiving their food stipends and spend it according to their own diet restrictions. We therefore plead with you to kindly discontinue your plans to cook for the African delegates, as they will not eat the food you will cook. Instead, give each delegate his or her daily food stipend. We ask for your sensitivity to the dietary needs of African delegates attending the 2020 General Conference. Now, to those of us who haven't traveled before, that might sound kind of persnickety. You don't realize how much your well-being depends on sticking with your diet. Even if the UMC leaders did cook perfect meals exactly according to the African needs, it's still very paternalistic. Can you imagine someone inviting you to come, but you have to come exactly when they say and leave exactly when they say, and you have to eat what they feed you? They will ask for your input. They're still going to make it, and there's not going to be any input. The whole thing is very controlling. It's very paternalistic. I don't know if I use that word yet. It's very concerning that they're trying to control African delegates to this degree, to this extreme. I think I would like to think, I mean, Americans are increasingly flaccid in our beings, but were I to be treated in this way, I'd be furious. I'm an American. I'm free. You're not going to tell me when to come and when to go. You're not going to tell me what I can eat. It's embarrassing to me. It's embarrassing to me that Africans are getting treated this way, and that people who supposedly care about racism are just silent about it. It's really embarrassing. You should be embarrassed, even if you are in the majority and you know you're going to get your way at General Conference and you know that Africans are not with you. If you're comfortable with excluding them in this way and treating them this way, you should be ashamed. Finishing the letter, last paragraph. Your assistance in reviewing and implementing the recommendations above will ensure inclusivity and full participation for African delegates in the deliberations of the General Conference. Please be aware that the strange delay in sending out our letters of invitation to many African delegates and alternate delegates is counterproductive to their full participation in the ensuing General Conference. Furthermore, many African delegates consider these new measures by the Commission on General Conference to cook for African delegates, purchase their tickets, and restrict the time of their arrival into the United States and their departure following the end of General Conference unacceptable. Given these unhealthy arrangements, many African delegates share the impression of a deliberate ploy by the leadership of the General Conference events to be divisive and hinder their full participation. Some also feel a sense of racism perpetrated against them, something that should not have place within the connectional polity of the UMC. We therefore request your timely intervention. Thank you. So you never want to be unnecessarily unfair in your characterization of others, and you always want to allow for the possibility that there's been a misunderstanding. It seems very unlikely that there has been. Mine hasn't been the only voice decrying this. I know that several United Methodist clergy behind the scenes have gotten in contact with bishops who've been in communication with the Commission on General Conference, with Gary Graves. I know that Africans have spoken directly with Gary Graves. And then they've heard, this particular letter has been sent to Ms. Hotchkiss from at least 20 African people that the person who sent this to me knows about. It's also become known that Ms. Hotchkiss is collaborating with someone within Nigeria. The gentleman's name is Andy Emmanuel. I actually interviewed him several months ago. And this gentleman is posing as the conference secretary, even though he's been removed from it. Ms. Hotchkiss is insisting that he is the conference secretary and refusing to talk to anyone. It's my understanding. I don't have firsthand knowledge of this. This has come back to me through two people there. She's refusing to coordinate with the official Nigerian delegation and is instead working with Andy Emmanuel, who, if you just get on Facebook, you see that he's positioning himself to become bishop. You see that he's been in open rebellion against his bishop, John Wesley Yohana, who I've also interviewed in the past. Ms. Hotchkiss seems to have taken a side. Well, it wouldn't seem to be just her. It would seem to be the entire General Conference staff, actually, that's taken a side in who it is that can actually speak for Africa. And if there are voices there that are just not friendly to the institution and what they want, their agenda, then they're just not getting invitations. And you know what? Even if they do, their movements and diets are going to be controlled, and it's going to be made known to them who's in charge while they're there. So I'm raising the alarm. I've been telling you, these people are not engaging in good faith action. This whole thing is going to be a mess. And if you're thinking that the worst thing that's going to happen is conservatives don't get what they want, you're not looking at this soberly. This is going to be a laughingstock for so many people who see the open corruption and racism of this sort of thing. This is going to be the sort of thing that news articles are published on, just saying there was widespread accusations that they intentionally did not invite Africans, and they just happened to have this landslide victory that was firmly contested for so long. It's going to be a dirty victory, guys. Even if the Africans came, I'm talking to the lefties. Even if the Africans came, you could still have your way with the sexual ethics stuff. You've got the numbers. You don't have to exclude them. This just feels vengeful and spiteful. It just seems like we haven't enjoyed your voices all along, so we're just not going to listen to you anymore. And we're going to make sure that those of you who do come know who's boss. It's I don't know. I mean, I know I usually don't get this like outs- outspoken, like kind of mean about it, but I don't know how anyone can feel good about this. And I still haven't seen any kind of official response from Gary Graves to the stuff that Mark Holland put out. Miss Hotchkiss hasn't responded to this. I I don't know what to say. These are people that are paid a very fair salary, have had plenty of exposure and experience to what work needs to get done. What other reason could there be for them not doing it other than what I've offered? If it turns out that there's been something that I've just completely missed, I'll come back and revisit this and completely disown what I've said. But for right now, I'm appalled. I think everybody else should be as well. Y'all pray for the African delegates. How do they even minister to their denomination when they're excluded? You know? So pray for them. Pray for Miss Hotchkiss and Mr. Graves and everybody else in the mix over there. They need to do the right thing. And when this General Conference gets together next month, God help them, they better do the right thing. So lots of prayer to be said. God help me, if I said anything wrong, I'll correct it. But this is too big a thing to just say, oh, somebody else is going to, it'll all get figured out. It's not all getting figured out. Whoever's in charge, if you watch this, make it happen. The alternative, letting things go down this road, is unacceptable. All right, that'll be it for me today. See ya.